Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some meal planning tips and tricks for this difficult time. With shelter-in-place orders, self-quarantine, social distancing, or just general concerns about health and safety, the one thing that hasn't changed is that we all still have to eat. A lot of you are probably going to the grocery store less often and also buying in bigger quantities. And meal planning can really help you make sure that you are, first of all, choosing the right things at the grocery store, and second of all, being able to utilize all those things and have delicious meals and not just have the same thing every single night. I hope you can all find this video helpful, but if not, I hope it's at least interesting to see my perspective and approach to meal planning during this time. If you're new to meal planning, I've got another video on my channel that kind of goes over the basics of what I do. And this video is more going to be the changes that I've made to my strategy. My first tip is that you may need to plan more meals per week than you did before. Now there's two reasons for this. The first reason is because we're all likely spending a lot more time at home, and the second reason is you're most likely not eating out or ordering takeout as much as you did previously. Now this might not be true for everyone, but I know that whether it's due to budget concerns or health concerns, a lot of people have stopped eating restaurant food as much as they did before. So you've got to make sure that you buy enough groceries and plan enough meals to supplement those meals that were previously eating out or takeout. My second tip is to buy things with a longer shelf life, but also things that you would ordinarily eat. Whatever fruits and vegetables you typically buy fresh, you can find the same in canned or frozen, or potentially freeze it yourself. You can also freeze things like bread and bagels that are hard to keep fresh for long. If your family only ate rice once a month before this all started, does it really make sense that that's something that you want to stock up on? My next tip is to try to have a plan B for the ingredients and recipes that you've got planned out. During this time, a lot of people are stockpiling, some people are hoarding food, and just generally grocery stores might be having an issue keeping everything in stock that they typically did. You don't want it to happen that 3 or 4 meals you planned out for that week were depending on an ingredient that you couldn't find. My next tip is to choose recipes that have limited or easily interchangeable ingredients. Things like stir-fry, burrito bowls, fried rice, and curry tend to be pretty forgiving when it comes to making substitutions. Long-lasting things like rice, noodles, spices, and sauces can provide a basic framework, and you can add in whatever you have on hand. My next tip is you may have to do a little research before deciding to make an ingredient substitution or omission. Now this definitely applies a lot more to baking than cooking, but if you're very new to cooking and baking, or you're unsure of the potential repercussions of what you're about to do, it's a great idea to just do a quick Google search. For example, omitting ground beef when making lasagna will have a much different impact than omitting yeast when you're making bread. My next tip is to keep the food pyramid in mind when planning your meals. Now, I feel like this is a really basic tip, and a lot of people probably do this anyways, but I figured it was worth mentioning. It's definitely important to stay healthy during this time. Just make sure you're eating a well-rounded, balanced diet. One thing that you might find yourself buying less of is meat and eggs. Now, whether this is because of increasing costs or because you simply can't find it in your grocery store, you should try to replace all of the protein that you'd typically be getting there with other sources. So you could try eating butter chickpeas instead of butter chicken, or a veggie burger instead of a hamburger. My next tip is to plan multiple recipes that can utilize the same versatile ingredient. So for example, you could have beans in chili one night and burrito bowls the next. Picking a versatile ingredient will keep your meals more interesting so that you don't get bored and feel like you're eating the same thing every night. I also think this is something that can help you save money. If you are using a lot of the same ingredient, you can buy it in a bigger quantity, buy it in bulk. This will typically be cheaper, but not always, so you have to check. And you'll be less likely to have a half-used something in the back of the fridge that just goes to waste. Now my next tip is super simple, but it comes from personal experience, unfortunately. Don't forget snacks, drinks, and treats. I think it's really easy to fall into the mindset of planning breakfast, lunch, and dinner and forget about all of those little incidental things. My next tip is to pay attention to the order in which you're eating these meals. You want to make sure that you're not eating the same thing for dinner every night if that's something that bothers you or your family. And personally, I wouldn't even do like sweet potato and butternut squash back to back. I think that if you have two either identical or very similar meals, that it's better to kind of stagger them out with a few other meals in between. Something else you might want to pay attention to is the expiration dates on some foods. So, for example, if you've got a packet of chicken that expires on Monday, but you weren't planning to use it in a recipe until Friday, that's not going to work. My typical strategy for this is to try to use the expiration date sensitive foods earlier in the week. And my last tip is to do your meal planning around your grocery shopping schedule. Before this pandemic started, we were going to the grocery store every single week, and so I would plan out the meals 1 week at a time. Now we're trying to get groceries only once every 2 weeks, and so I am planning out our meals 2 weeks at a time. Maybe you're doing once every 3 weeks or even 4 weeks if you are just a super planner. And unless there's like just 1 or 2 things that we really need, we are trying to not actually go into the grocery store at all. We've either been doing delivery or like the curbside pickup option. So I think those are 2 great options if you are trying to, minimize your exposure as much as possible. But of course, there are trade-offs to that. You don't get to select your own produce, and if something is out of stock, you don't necessarily know about it ahead of time or have the option to substitute it with something else. Alright, those are all the tips I have for you today. I hope you liked this video. Make sure you like it if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.